You're late.
I'm really sorry. The entrances to Makati was all traffic.
Tell that to Doc Lee instead.
Was he mad that I was missing?
Oh, mad is an understatement. I think fuming would be more fitting.
Oh no.
Oh, no is right. Your assignment for today, according to her, is to dissect and study the structures and functions of the brain. You can get the brain at the lab, by the way, under Doc Lee's name.
Wait, really?
Yep. I don't think she wants you to assist patients as of the moment, so...
Wait, no. I actually wanted to do it. I plan to volunteer for it today, but I guess luck is on my side today.
Well, suit yourself. I gotta go. I'm being paged by the psych department. Enjoy your task.
Oh, I surely will. Don't have too much fun without me. Well, I better get to work.
The brain might just be the most complex yet most beautiful thing existing on this planet. It enables us to think, make decisions, feel emotions, create, learn, breathe. Basically, almost everything we do relates to how our brain functions.
For us to be able to examine the parts thoroughly, I will place the brain flat down into this board. Make the white spinal cord at one end rest on the board. Before we talk about the different parts of the brain and its function, notice the sac-like transparent layer that envelopes the brain here? This is called the dura mater. It is the outer layer of the meningeus membrane covering the brain. Now that we have discussed the dura mater, let's get it out of the way slowly using my forceps. Now, we have the full view of the surface of the brain. Let's identify its different parts and discuss them. This is the cerebellum. It is located at the back of the brain underlying the occipital and temporal lobes of the cerebral cortex, at the top part of the brainstem. It is divided into two parts, namely the lateral and medial parts. The cerebellum mainly helps our motor skills. It helps in maintaining posture, balance, and equilibrium. Moving on to our cerebrum sits atop the brainstem. It is responsible for initiating and coordinating movement and regulates temperature. The cerebrum makes up 85% of our brains. Thus, it is divided into two hemispheres, which is the left and right hemisphere. The two hemispheres are joined by a bundle of fibers called the corpus callosum that transmit messages from one side to another.
The left hemisphere of the brain is responsible for cognitive functions, comprehension, logic, and analytical skills, while the right hemisphere is responsible for creativity, emotions, spatial ability, and musical skills.
Moving on, here located is the spinal cord. It acts as the body's telephone system.
The spinal cord relays information from the brain to the rest of the body. It's a pathway of messages sent by the body to the brain and from the brain to the body. It's also responsible for transmitting messages to the brain from the body, such as sensations of touch, pressure, and pain.
Now, let me turn the brain over to get a ventral view of it, and let's identify the medulla and pons.
The medulla and pons together with the midbrain makes up our brainstem.
Next, I'll be locating the olfactory bulb, which can be found on the inferior side of the cerebral hemisphere, located near the front brain. It has a spherical or globular shape due to the globular tangles axons of olfactory neurons and the dendrites of other cells. It functions as a smell receptor, or in simpler terms, it's responsible for our proper sense of smell as it transmits smell information from the nose to the brain. It has one source of sensory input and one output. Now, I'll be turning the brain back over, and notice the grooves and bump ridges on the surface of the brain. We refer to those as sulci and gyri. Sulci are the grooves in the cerebral cortex, and gyri are the bump ridges. These two together help increase the surface area of the cerebral cortex to form divisions that will allow more neurons to be packed into the cortex so it can process more information. Moving on, see this deep groove right here? It is called the medial longitudinal fissure. It separates the right and left hemispheres of the brain.
The cerebrum, the largest uppermost part of the brain, contains the major four lobes of the brain, which are the frontal lobe, parietal lobe, temporal lobe, and the occipital lobe. Each has their own distinct features and functions that contribute to the daily activities done by the human body. Moving on, we will now tackle the cerebellum. To get a better view, I will turn the brain for a dorsal view to expose the said region.
The cerebellum can be located at the posterior portion of the brain, directly inferior to the occipital lobe of the cerebrum. It contains a folded outer cortex divided at the top by the vermis, located at the central portion of the cerebellum that connects the two hemispheres.
Next, I will separate the two hemispheres of the brain to expose its inner parts by cutting along the longitudinal fissure, which is a deep groove at the center line that divides the brain into left and right sections.
I am now cutting the brain into two hemispheres, starting from the frontal lobe of the cerebrum to the cerebellum up to the brainstem.
See the C-shaped fiber sitting at the center of the brain? This thick bundle of nerve fibers is called the corpus callosum. Remember that the brain is divided into two hemispheres, right? The corpus callosum connects these two hemispheres together to ensure that communication and sending of messages takes place between the two.
Now, I'll be locating the third and fourth ventricles of the brain, starting with the third ventricle. This narrow funnel-shaped cavity is found in the middle between the hemispheres, situated between the left and right thalamus. As you can see these two bulb-shaped structures right here that lie superior to the brainstem, right near the center of the brain, beneath the hypothalamus, is the thalamus.
Right below the thalamus is a small structure almost the same size as an almond known as the hypothalamus. It is situated at the base of the brain, right above the pituitary gland and the brainstem.
Like the hypothalamus, the pituitary gland is also involved in producing hormones in the body. It is located at the base of the brain, inferior to the hypothalamus. As mentioned earlier, see this small pea-sized organ right here? That is the pituitary gland.
Moving on, the pineal body right here is a small glandular organ that is shaped like a pine cone. It is located deep into the center of the brain, lying posterior to the brain's third ventricle.
In the cerebellum, a white matter can be seen right here, forming a branched tree-like pattern known as the arbor vitae. This arbor vitae is responsible for delivering sensory and motor information to the cerebellum.
Moving on, I will now cut one of the hemispheres into half, and I will be identifying the white matter and the outer gray matter, which are the two regions present inside the central nervous system.
See this white color here in the intersection of the hemisphere? That is the white matter. This region transmits information that is processed from the gray matter onto the other parts of the nervous system.
And this darker color on the outer portion of the hemisphere is where the gray matter is. This region is responsible for the processing and interpreting information that is being received by the human body.
And that's a wrap. I am now done dissecting the brain. Now I just have to clean and disinfect the area before I leave.
I see that you did the assignment I have given you today despite being late.
Yes, Doc. I would like to apologize for being late, but I was able to dissect and study the brain. And for the most part, I could say that the structures and functions of the brain are very complex, which is one of the many things that make it so beautiful and unique.